Triple murder accuser Henry van Breda will know his fate today when Judge Siraj Desai hands down judgment in the High Court in Cape Town. Johannesburg police have launched a manhunt for 8 suspects after yet another cash and transit robbery yesterday afternoon. The ANC will brief the media today on the outcomes of its land summit, which took place over the weekend.
So I'm not going to be patronized by
the National Rugby Federation, who have a close working relationship with the sport broadcaster SuperSport, says they've been asked to be kept informed on the investigation underway and said it has not reflected well on the game following Saturday's walkout by Ashwin Willemse.
Hello and welcome to SABC News. You're watching Newsroom. I'm Shante Yankees. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Coming up this hour, Van Breda judgment is to be handed down in the Cape Town High Court. Of course, I'm not alone. Megan Quickly is standing by with all your sporting highlights. Just discussing what's been taking place over the weekend, Megan.
Yes, it got Twitter, social media a buzz, and certainly was the talking point yesterday when it comes to sports. The Ashwin Willemse walkout of the SuperSport studio following an alleged racist incident, which is being investigated by the Sports Channel, and they're expected to brief South Africa later on today. But I'll be keeping you up to speed with that story and so much more as according to the top of every hour when we bring you our sports bulletin here on Newsroom. First, it's back to Shante for your news.
Having a look at your lead story this morning, Johannesburg police have launched a manhunt for 8 suspects after yet another cash and transit robbery yesterday afternoon. The suspects ambushed security guards at ShopRite in Southdale and they fled with an undisclosed amount of cash. Police say the security guards were on their way to
Thursday, this brazen twin attack in Boksburg. The following day, another in Pretoria, and a similar scene in neighboring Mpumalanga on Thursday.
We are in the middle of what I term a cash-in-transit epidemic. I mean, the statistics tell a story of an extraordinary increase in this particular crime. 2014, 180 heists. At the end of last year, 378. And this year, 5 months in, we're already at 111.
The South African Banking Risk Information Center says on average, there is 1 cash-in-transit robbery per day. Police insist they are not losing the battle.
In Boksburg, we managed to arrest 5 suspects. Again, we managed to recover rifles in Fortsburg that we believe they might have, those people were planning a robbery or cash in transit heist. In that incident, we believe that we prevented another robbery.
Suspects involved in the Boksburg heist are expected to appear in court on Monday. Highly organized heist in broad daylight. Police say they are now investigating if the recent incidents are linked. They've launched a manhunt for the suspects. This, as a search for 5 others involved in Thursday's attack, also continues. Mangoba Mchunu, SABC News in Southdale in Johannesburg.
Well, triple murder accused Henry van Breda will know his fate in the Cape Town High Court today. Van Breda pleaded not guilty to axing both of his parents, his brother, and seriously injuring his 17-year-old sister, Marlene. He's also facing charges of defeating the ends of justice.
It was at this lavish Desalza Golf estate outside Stellenbosch where Henry van Breda is accused of killing his mother, father, brother, and seriously injuring his sister with an axe. But Van Breda stuck to his word that an intruder wearing a balaclava, gloves and dark clothing was behind the attack at his home. The state questioned this.
It would be strange if he had noticed you and he just ignored you.
It would be strange, but on another level, I did shout for help, so I think he must have been aware.
Exactly when did you shout for help?
As soon as I saw that the sounds that I heard was an attack on Rudy.
During the trial, he even demonstrated to the court how the intruder inflicted blows on his family, prompting the judge to have further questions.
Is there some explanation why you didn't defensively try to protect yourselves, protect your brother, protect each other? tried to overpower the intruder.
I think I was just too scared to do anything.
In closing arguments, Van Breda's advocate maintained that the state had not proved beyond reasonable doubt that his client was behind the attack. He read out a statement from the accused, explaining what had happened days before the attack, painting a picture of his relationship with his family.
We were a fairly close-knit family that enjoyed doing things together. We especially enjoyed doing outdoor activities as a family, like shark cage diving, boating, water skiing and fishing.
But the state argued that there had been no motive for an intruder to go to the Van Breda home to kill 3 people.
And further, that the provisions of Act 105 of 1997 are applicable in that counts 1 to 3, the offences are specified in Part 1 of Schedule 2 of the said Act, in that the murder was planned or premeditated and that a minimum sentence of life imprisonment is therefore applicable.
A neurologist, Dr. James Butler, testified that there was compelling evidence that Van Breda had an epileptic seizure on the night of the attack and that the possibility of him faking illness was highly unlikely.
My judgment would be that the appearance, there are 3 things that actually strike one. The first is that he has somewhat dark rings around his eyes. The second is that there is a bruise in the left frontal region above the left eye. And the third is, you may beg to differ, but he looks considerably dulled to me.
Van Breda's sister Marley, who had suffered injuries to the head during the attack, suffered brain damage and could not remember anything from that night. The absence of direct evidence, circumstantial evidence and DNA tests will all be used when Judge Suraj Desai delivers his judgment. Nomawethu Solwandle, SABC News, Cape Town.
Well, the ANC will today brief the media on the outcomes of its land summit, which took place over the weekend. The party is deliberating on its resolution to expropriate land without compensation taken at its 54th conference in December. Despite the resolution, opinion in the party is divided over whether to amend the constitution or leave the current provision of Section 25. Well, some want amendments to Section 25 of the constitution, while others argue that the provision is sufficient. The ANC briefing will give a clear indication of whether the constitution will be amended following the party's workshop on the land issue this past weekend. Parliament is already busy with the process following a vote to consider the matter. Well, Supra Mahumapilu is expected back at Luthuli House today, where his fate as Northwest Premier is likely to be sealed. He will be leading the Provincial Working Committee. Mahumapilu has reneged on his pledge to resign as Premier. He has instead taken a leave of absence and appointed Finance MEC Wendy Nelson an acting Premier. The Northwest recently saw violent protests with residents demanding the immediate removal of the Premier, who they accuse of corruption. Well, the new Free State ANC top 5 and provincial executive are a clean sweep for a Samakashule faction in the province. They're also known to have strong links to the former provincial chair and premier, now ANC Secretary General. The opposing faction is heading to court. Spalez Moeti reports.
A triumph for those seen to be aligned to the Makashule camp. The top 5 were elected unopposed. The process was closed to the media, but an unofficial list of the 5 names was leaked to the media hours earlier. Police Roads and Transport MEC Sam Mashinini is the new chair. He's deputized by former Secretary and Coordinator of the Provincial Task Team, William Bulwane. The Secretary is former PTT convener Paseka Nompondo, while Legislature Speaker Mamiki Kabate assumes the position of Deputy Secretary, and Premier Sisintombela that of Treasurer. The newly elected top 5 and PEC underscored deep divisions in the province.
It is virtually the same guys coming over again in this new MEC, in this new PEC as the newly elected committee. Now this puts basically the wheel on the spanner in terms of the disgruntled group. Now Now, there's rumors that they are going to court during the forthcoming week, and one of their issues that they'll be raising is the very issue of the conference not being properly constituted.
3 of the top 5 were part of the PEC nullified by the Free State High Court in December. The court found that processes leading up to that conference had been riddled with irregularities. This elective conference is also likely to be dissected in court. Disgruntled members are questioning the legitimacy of conference delegates and branch membership audits. The newly elected Free State leaders were not available for comment. Balesamwe, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
ANC branches in KwaZulu-Natal have called for the postponement of the regional and provincial conferences. They've appealed to the party's National Executive Committee to intervene and avert further bloodshed.
ANC members venting their frustrations, from ongoing political killings to problems at branch level. Since 2015, gatekeeping has seen supporters denied branch membership. Branches claim their issues aren't being resolved.
Our concern is the audit process. Our branches are not being informed in time to submit their membership details. We are told at the last minute and miss out.
Another concern, regional conferences. 4 regions concluded theirs. The 4 which are yet to convene have seen the majority of political killings. In the Moses Mabhida region, at least 14 members have been killed since 2016. Branches say the ANC needs to put lives before positions.
Our comrades have been killed in the Harry Gwala region, in the Lower South Coast region, and in the Moses Mabhida region. How then can we go to the conference when our comrades are being killed?
Meanwhile, in Ladysmith, chaos broke out at the ANC offices. A meeting was disrupted with branch members demanding the disbandment of the regional leadership. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News, Durban.
Well, the Democratic Alliance has proposed that the country's cabinet be slashed as part of belt tightening amid difficult economic times. The party says taxpayers can be saved at least more than 2 billion rand annually if ministerial positions are reduced from 35 to 28 or even fewer. It also says there is no need for certain deputy ministers. The party has written to President Cyril Ramaphosa, urging him to consider the proposal as a matter of urgency.
We still see that the bloated cabinet of President Zuma continues to live through the current administration, and that our country's cabinet is by far one of the biggest in the world, with 35 ministers, far bigger than the United States with 15, Kenya with 18 ministers, and the United Kingdom with 21 ministers. This year alone, our 35 ministers and the 37 deputy ministers will earn in the region of 163.5 million rand. And over the medium-term period, it will reach 510.5 million rand.
Well, staying with the Democratic Alliance, the party launched its 2019 election campaign at the Northwest University's Potchefstroom campus. The party aims to wrestle control of the province from the ANC. Selwane Kakao has the report.
The DA getting ready for the 2019 elections. It set its sights on unseating the ANC in the Northwest, which party leader Mmusi Maimane has described as having undeniable problems.
It shows that the ANC here cannot put the people first. Instead, they are picking one faction over another, and services have failed here. That's why we stand here as the DA to say, we are the party that can bring about the change. We will ensure that our people bring a capable government here that will deliver for all the people. We don't want to hire friends and do all of those things. We want to ensure that the best people work for government and that that government delivers for all the people. That's why this Northwest becomes a very important province.
The DA provincial leader, Joe McClure, also railed against the appointment of Wendy Nelson as acting Northwest Premier.
Our legal team is currently looking into various options with specific reference to the appointment of the acting Premier, and we are saying what is going on in the province. We are not happy. We have buildings is burning down. We have schools that are closed, and also hospitals that are no service.
The DA kicked off its election drive in the former Tlokwe municipality in Potchefstroom, which the party ruled for less than 6 months after toppling the ANC in 2013. Selwane Khachau, SABC News, Potchefstroom.
An all-cast girls staged a play in honor of the life of the late struggle icon Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. The play Mangaliso, The Miracle, marks 40 years since the death of Sobukwe at the Kimberley Hospital complex.
Robert Sobukwe life told through a theatrical musical. The performance was staged by a cast of vibrant young actors from Khalishiwe Township. The musical centered around the events of the Sharpeville massacre, his incarceration at Robben Island leading up to his death. 13-year-old girl who played the role of Sobukwe says she is honored to play the lead. Young actresses kept the audience captivated.
I really feel so proud about this play. I can't believe what I just saw, what I just witnessed. It's a world-class performance.
I think it's a very good thing for our kids in our communities. It also helps our kids to stay away from substance abusers.
The organizers say they chose to tell Sobukwe's story in an effort to teach young people about history and how it connects to current political issues in the country.
We chose Robert Sobukwe theme because we believe we have a lot of icons that are not so celebrated like other people as well. Ne? So Robert, we felt there's an issue now in the country about the land, and Robert was all about the land, Africa for Africans, and we want our kids to understand history.
The Northern Cape Arts and Culture Council has promised to help the group with funding.
We always help them with funding, especially this group. It will be going to Grahamstown soon, so we'll try as the council to give some funding to them so that they go and represent the Northern Cape.
This group of young girls is expected to take part at this year's National Arts Festival, Nebelungu Nowapane, Kimberley in the Northern Cape.
Well, our question that we're asking you today is, what do you make of the Ashwin Villiser hashtag or /Supersport saga? You can send us your comments on @SABC Newsroom. Throughout the course of the entire weekend, Twitter was a buzz. So we'll have a look at some of your comments and tweets after the break.
SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
An exciting opportunity and an absolute must for those with the spirit of adventure is a Kruger Park night game drive.
The railway station itself is already a sight to behold and offers gracious colonial-style buildings and serves as the departure and arrival point for all train journeys.
I wanted to dress with my best color. Being awarded to do the Serpentine Pavilion is the highest commission in my career. And I wanted just to come and show me with my best clothes, and that is blue.
Catch Trends Travel every Sunday from 12 to 1 for all the global travel and leisure trends.
News at 9. We go beyond the headlines of the day and breaking news to bring you all the angles and in-depth analysis of stories that impact your life. We are on the ball with all economic stories. Our bureaus around the globe are ready to connect you to events as and when they happen. So join us every day at 9 to zoom in on the day's big stories.
Welcome back. You're watching SABC News Newsroom. Our question that we're asking is, what do you make of the Ashwin Villiser Supersport saga We've asked you to send us your comments on @SABC Newsroom. We do know that Twitter was abuzz, as we've only seen that one clip that has been circulating on social media. Is there more to the story? We don't know as yet. Well, Philip says in the event of lack of consequence management against racists in Supersport, Ashwin was correct in his actions. Zamo says it is possible that when Ashwin threw a question about the match to Nick and Naz, their response indicated that they had nothing further to say, and that translated to some form of racism, or was it a red card given on the match they were analysing? Nazim says, I'm happy with the way Ashwin Willemse kept his cool and exposed the two racists, Nick Mallet and Naz Botha. We're hoping to get some more information as to see what else is behind that story, apart from the clip that we've just seen on social media. We're also running a poll, also making headlines all throughout the course of the weekend. Do you agree with the way that Babes Woduma's abuse allegations were exposed? Well, 36% of you are saying no, 64% of you are saying yes, with over 700 votes coming in. Let's have a look at possibly some of your reasons behind those numbers. Tabiso says there are many abusers out there who are not exposed. Masachaba used Babes for her own popularity gains. Olani says it was her decision to make. She should have not been ambushed like that. And then Percy says, well, some never come out and talk about that and they end up dead. Percy also says we need to name and shame abusers because we are all labelled as trash. And I suppose that is where the debate begins as to whether it should have been put out on a platform like that or not. Well, we'll leave that up to you to give us your comment. We'll have a look at them in just a bit later. And let's have a look now at what's making headlines front page and centre on our newspapers continentally this morning. In South Africa, the Citizen says that the reports of Minister of Sport and Recreation, Thokozile Xasa, calls for commentators Nick Mallet and Naz Botha's suspension after quota player Ashwin Willemse stormed off during a live Supersport broadcast at the weekend. Up north in Nigeria, the Daily Trust says the Nigerian army has put up its land meant for barracks for sale to the public to build private homes and businesses, daily investigations have shown. And finally in Kenya, the Business Daily and Kenyan consumers are headed for tough times in the shops as global crude prices continue to rise, pushing up the cost of transport and energy and causing a general rise in the prices of goods and services. And still ahead, a number of South African women have been featured in an international exhibition celebrating inspirational women from across the globe. Find out who these women are after the break.
SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
Technology is used for both positive and negative.
Some governments block the internet in times of protest.
With this internet blackout, it's impossible for me to do it, so I have to travel to Douala.
This act is a true violation of the rights of citizens.
In Africa, people are always coming up with innovative ways to use technology to solve some of their problems.
The more interesting piece of technology is actually the artificial intelligence.
AI, it's utilizing data to make your life easier.
On Network, we'll give you Africa's technology and social media news.
Catch Network with Spumelele Zondi every Saturday at 8:30 p.m.
Robots, automation and artificial intelligence are becoming an increasingly important part of our lives.
We love the term disruptive technologies.
Parents and caregivers are taking part in Facebook.
On Network, we give you Africa's technology and social media news.
My favorite piece of technology is the microwave.
The reason why I can't live without my cell phone is because I do everything on my cell phone.
For all your technology news, catch Network with Spumelele Zondi on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m.
News at 9. We go beyond the headlines of the day and breaking news to bring you all the angles and in-depth analysis of stories that impact your life. We are on the ball with all economic stories. Our bureaus around the globe are ready to connect you to events as and when they happen. So join us every day at 9 to zoom in on the day's big stories.
Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has assured his party supporters that he will announce dates for the harmonized elections within the next 2 weeks. The Democratic Republic of Congo will begin a vaccination campaign today aimed at containing an outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus. Well, Turkish protesters say they are planning another mass rally against Israel following the killing of at least 60 Palestinians by Israeli forces last week. Well, leading at the half hour with African News, Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa has assured his party supporters that he will announce dates for the harmonized elections within the next 2 weeks. According to the country's constitution, the elections must be held between the 21st of July and the 21st of August. Well, most political parties have, however, already started their campaigns across the country. A former vice president under Robert Mugabe, Joyce Mujuru, who now leads the opposition National People's Party, launched her campaign manifesto in her rural home area of Dotito in Mashonaland Central and vowed that she won't be joining ranks with ZANU-PF. Another aspiring candidate and former MDC president or deputy president, Tokodani Akube, who broke ranks with the main opposition, was forced to cancel her manifesto rally in Harare due to a low turnout of supporters.
Despite the proclamation of the election date not having been made, election season has already gripped the Southern African nation and various leaders have begun selling their messages to the electorate. This weekend saw all major political party leaders go out and campaign for votes. Incumbent and ruling party leader Emmerson Mnangagwa took his first campaign rally to Manicaland. He has continued with his call for a peaceful campaign period.
No violence. We want our elections to be free of violence. I plead with you, it's more important, it's more powerful for us to be peaceful. It's more powerful. It means we are mature, and ZANU-PF is mature. We must preach love. We must preach unity. People are allowed to differ. You must allow your brother, your sister to differ with you, but never be violent because your sister is different with you.
Mnangagwa said the re-engagement policy his administration embarked on over the past 7 months has been in charge had already started paying off, with new investors coming every week while internal private companies are also alive to rebuilding the economy. Mnangagwa said over $15 billion worth of foreign direct investment has been committed so far, and more commitments are expected following his visit to Qatar. But agriculture remains the anchor of ZANU-PF's future economy, and the plan is clear.
We must modernize our agriculture. We must mechanize our agriculture. We need about 350,000 hectares under irrigation. Kataba na iyoyo, whether mvura kana kasonaya. To irrigate 350,000 hectares, that will give us again in excess of 2 million metric tons of grain and atinanzara.
Mnangagwa said his government had already begun the process of acquiring the irrigation equipment from countries like China, Spain and Brazil.
The Democratic Republic of Congo will begin a vaccination campaign today aimed at containing an outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus. 45 cases of Ebola have been reported and at least 25 people are believed to have died. The Health Ministry has already shipped 4,000 doses of the vaccine to the port city of Dhaka. Last week, the city registered the first Ebola case in an urban area since the latest flare-up of the disease was announced earlier this month. Well, by this weekend, 4 cases had been confirmed, with 1 patient dead. The outbreak is Congo's 9th since the disease made its first appearance in the 1970s. There are fears that the virus could spread from Dhaka downstream to the capital Kinshasa, which has a population of 10 million. Well, Turkish protesters say they are planning another mass rally against Israel following the killing of at least 60 Palestinians by Israeli forces last week. Palestinians were protesting over the opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. On Friday, hundreds of thousands of Turks marched in Istanbul. Well, the crowd chanted slogans like "Palestine is not alone" and "We stand for Jerusalem." Addressing the rally, Turkey's president said the Islamic community and the world have failed the Jerusalem cause. He blamed the United Nations for not taking a resolute stance against Washington's embassy move. More than 2,500 Palestinians were wounded in the confrontation on Monday. In response, Turkey recalled its ambassadors from Tel Aviv and Washington. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan arrived in Bosnia on Sunday to hold his only election rally outside Turkey. Other EU countries have also banned such events ahead of Ankara's presidential and parliamentary elections coming up next month.
The capital, Sarajevo, was chosen for the event after countries such as Germany, Austria and the Netherlands barred the Turkish politicians from holding such rallies, stoking tensions between Ankara and Brussels. Turkey is scheduled to hold the presidential and parliamentary elections on June 24, with 3 million expatriates and Turks allowed to vote, including 1.4 million in Germany. Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik accused the Turkish leader of interfering in Bosnians' affairs. Turkey has excellent relations with Bosnia, and Turkish companies have played a major role in the country's reconstruction following its 1990s inter-ethnic war. Erdogan has called the snap presidential and parliamentary elections for June 24, bringing the polls forward by a year and a half. Half of Bosnia's 3.5 million citizens are Muslims, a third are Serbs, while Croats make some 15% of the population. His supporters are expected to arrive from all over Europe, from Germany, Austria, Belgium, Scandinavia, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Italy or Hungary.
I am thinking 4 or 5 years ago, EU is very good, democratic, EU, Europa, we like it. Now we don't like it, Europa. Why make Europa same like this? That is not democratic.
The expatriate Europe vote is generally a source of support for Erdogan's AKP, and officials are keen to rouse a strong turnout in Europe. The election in Turkey is set to accelerate its transition to the new presidential system with full executive powers, which critics fear will lead to a one-man rule.
Well, the Thabo Mbeki African Aid Lecture will be delivered by the former South African Deputy President, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, on Friday. This is part of the celebration of Africa Day.
She's a former Member of Parliament, a Cabinet Minister and South Africa's first female Deputy President. She's currently serving her second term as Under Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Women, and will deliver the 9th annual Thabo Mbeki Africa Day Lecture on May 25th.
This opportunity will enable me to tell South Africans about the important role we can play in the divided Security Council, to bring the issues of women to the center, because the Security Council is responsible for peace and security. And we know that women are disproportionately affected by conflicts that are ranging around the world. But also, this is a multipolar world in which trade is under threat, and we need to make sure that we raise the issues that will benefit women's economic advancement.
Africa Day Lecture on Women Development for Africa's Renewal with Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, May 25th, with live coverage via Channel 404 beginning at 6 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
Earlier, SABC News spoke to Tami Nteni, who is head of communication at the Thabo Mbeki Foundation.
The choice of Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka is a very appropriate choice, considering her achievements both here in South Africa and internationally. You will recall that Dr. Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka was at one point the Deputy President of South Africa,
yes.
And now she is playing her role at the United Nations relating to matters of women and development.
Yeah, so she seems like an automatic choice to come in and deliver this lecture. Any idea what it is that she'll be sort of focusing in on during this particular lecture?
Well, the theme of the lecture is gender equity, a necessary paradigm shift. A necessary paradigm shift for Africa's development. So that actually speaks to what she's going to be talking to. Because when we speak of a paradigm shift, we are talking about a shift in a certain mindset. We have been living for a very long time in societies that have been dominated by gender-based power relations, which are antiquated and are actually archaic.
Yeah.
And therefore, we cannot speak development when such a large number of part of society is on the margins of the economy and treated in the manner in which, in fact, we could say discriminated against in terms of participation in the economy.
Absolutely, and it is one of the biggest challenges that faces the continent, and I'm glad that this is going to be the focus of this year's lecture. And I believe that after the lecture there's actually going to be a panel discussion, and we've got a visiting professor, if I'm not mistaken, from Malawi coming to join her.
Exactly.
Talk to us about this.
Now, also insofar as that is concerned, there are various areas of discussion that will take place, also addressing the question of gender equity and development, but various components of this. That means now the panel discussion will be a bit more focused on specific areas of development and involvement of women in terms of their participation in development and also promoting equality for equity treatment of women in development.
Short break here on SABC Newsroom. When we come back, Valen currently standing by with all your sporting highlights.
SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
Hello, I'm Simpiwe Ngongan, and as usual, I'm in the company of the pearl of the show.
And yes, I'm Pearl Shongwe, and this is the weekend edition of Morning Live,
where we bring you news stories, making headlines, weather updates, and the latest in the world of sports.
Every weekend on Saturday and Sunday mornings, we bring you, our viewer, vibrant, exciting, informative current stories here on the SABC News Channel 404.
And we also put a spotlight on creative art stories, book reviews, poetry, and various topical stories. We also bring you live outside broadcast as well as live music performances.
All
of this every weekend between 6 and 9 here on the SABC News Channel 404.
Shervin Briceby's SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Tebu Mokobo, SABC Ufa Kochamono, Russia.
Neha Punya, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Takwanangatani, SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
Robots, automation and artificial intelligence are becoming an increasingly important part of our lives.
We love the term disruptive technologies.
Parents and caregivers are taking part in Facebook.
On Network, we give you Africa's technology and social media news.
My favorite piece of technology is the microwave.
The reason why I can't live without my cell phone is because I do everything on my cell phone.
For all your technology news, catch Network with Spumelele Zondi on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with Newsroom. Let's bring you your sport now. SA Rugby have responded to the SuperSport studio walkout by former player Ashwin Willemse following an alleged racist incident during a live broadcast on Saturday night involving two other former players, Nas Botha and Nick Mallet. The National Rugby Federation, who have a close working relationship with the sport broadcaster, says they have been asked to be kept informed on the investigation currently underway and said it has not reflected well on the game. Meanwhile, the National Sports Ministry has called on the broadcaster to suspend the two. They're expecting to get feedback from SuperSport tomorrow. The Minister of Sport and Recreation's spokesperson, Vuyo Macha, spoke to Morning Live earlier.
Between the course of this week, as you all know, that tomorrow the Minister will be delivering her budget vote, and we're quite hopeful that post that they will be able to then bring the Minister to speak to say what exactly happened in their studios, and as I've said, what can we do to make sure that it never happens again.
In cricket news, South Africa's Lungi Ngidi won man of the match as the Chennai Super Kings secured a 5-wicket win over the Kings 11 Punjab. Ngidi took 4 wickets for 10 runs to help restrict the Kings 11 to 153, and it was a target that was reached by the Super Kings with 5 balls to spare. The win ensured they finished second on the points table, and the Kings 11 chance of a playoff spot vanished following, or rather leaving, the Rajasthan Royals to join CSK, Sunrisers Hyderabad and the Kolkata Knight Riders in the last 4.
Now they're all appealing. So is Dhoni. Now is Chris Gayle walking here, just down the leg side. There was good pace, good carry on that. What a start from Lungisani Ngidi. Oh, he's knocked him over. The ball does come back in. This is a huge moment. What a delivery. It's coincided with the slight decline this year. Now he's gone up in appeal again, is Ngidi.
There is the slide sound, confirmation from the ultra edge.
Lungisani Ngidi has just had a very good review.
Big round of applause from Harbhajan Singh to Lungi Ngidi.
Another one. Another one. He's got a wicket machine in his backyard today.
It's flown, too much width, and Suresh Raina throws the hands at it and gets it away for 4.
Oh, it's gone through, Sam Billings. Oh, the man from England has got a very English kind of dismissal here. Right, he's crunched that one, and he's crunched it well for 6. And he finishes with a 6. What did you expect? Fantastic stuff.
Staying with cricket news, the Momentum Proteas, that's the South African national women's team, completed a clean sweep of victories over Bangladesh after winning the 3rd and final T20 international in Mangaung by 23 runs. South Africa continued their 16-day domination over Bangladesh following their 5-0 whitewash in the ODI series. Tasman Britt, South Africa's new 27-year-old opener, top scored with a 22-ball 29. Only one other player, Dane van Niekerk, scored in double digits as Britt took them to the 8th over, in which South Africa lost 2 wickets. Captain and off-spinner Salma Khatun picked up 2 for 18 from her 2 overs. After the match was reduced to 9 overs aside, 3 overs of power play, South Africa defended their total of 64 runs with key contributions from fast bowlers Marazan Cap taking 2 for 8 and Ayabonga Kakao taking 3 for 10. In football now, Jomo Cosmos will travel to Platinum Stars on Wednesday, aiming to snatch victory in the Premiership promotion relegation match. Cosmos came back to secure a 2-2 draw with Black Leopards after fielding a full-strength team.
But Leopards were not fazed. Cosmos made an error in defense. Mwape Musonda punished Ezenkosi in the 12th minute. However, Leopards goalkeeper Rochidzwa Mulega made a grave mistake and allowed Cosmos to equalize. In the second half, Musonda, who is one of the leading goal scorers in the NFD, completed his brace.
A set piece taken, they fell asleep, they've been punished. Musonda finds another goal.
Jomo Cosmos had to dig deep to score a crucial equalizer in the 90th minute. The visitors have themselves to blame for losing focus deep into extra time. Thembasheba, SABC News.
In tennis news, Rafael Nadal made the best of a rain delay to come from behind in the deciding set and beat defending champion Alexander Zverev 6-1, 1-6 and 6-3 in the Italian Open final. The win gave the Spaniard his 56th title on clay, 8 of them in Rome, and he returns to the world #1 ranking from Roger Federer. German second seed and defending champion Zverev was 3-1 up in the deciding set in yesterday's final before 2 rain stoppages halted his momentum at the Foro Italico. Nadal came back on court re-energized to sweep the final 4 games and claim victory for his 32nd Masters trophy. Nadal will seek an 11th French Open crown to match the 11 he already owns from Monte Carlo and Barcelona when the tournament gets underway at Roland Garros. In motorsport news now, South Africa's Brad Binder secured another top 10 finish in the Moto2 category at the French Grand Prix. The former Moto3 world champion is now in 9th place on the standings in his category, while Spaniard Marc Marquez extended his MotoGP World Championship lead when he won the Premier Division in France. The Repsol Honda rider took the lead with 18 laps remaining in Le Mans and held off Italians Danilo Petrucci of Ducati and Valentino Rossi of Yamaha, who were 2nd and 3rd respectively. With his 3rd victory in 3 races, which put him on 95 points, 4-time MotoGP world champion Marquez stretched his lead to 36 points over his compatriot Maverick Vinales. Frenchman Johan Zarco dropped from 2nd to 3rd on 58 points. Zarco, who started from pole position and was chasing a first French Open or French victory in the French GP in the top class since Christian Serron in 1988, crashed out of contention on lap 8. Italian Andrea Dovizioso also crashed as he was leading the race. In cycling news, Simon Yates strengthened his grip on the Giro d'Italia ahead of today's rest day. Yates stormed to victory on the 15th stage with a strong solo effort. Yates attacked 18 kilometers from the finish to leave his rivals in the dust and claim his 3rd stage win on the 176-kilometer ride from Tolmezzo to Sappada. The 25-year-old from Bury started the day with a 1-minute and 24-second lead over Dutch rider and defending champion Tom Dumoulin, who battled hard to finish 3rd behind Miguel Angel Lopez, 41 seconds off the pace. The win means Yates extended his lead over Dumoulin to 2 minutes and 11 seconds with 1 week to go. Team Sky's Chris Froome, who won Saturday's stage on Mont Zoncolan, finished 17th, 1 minute and 32 seconds behind his fellow Briton, and he dropped 2 places to 7th in the general classification. He now sits 4 minutes and 52 seconds behind Yates. Dumoulin, the world's time trial champion, will look to cut Yates' lead during tomorrow's 34.2-kilometer time trial. And finally, in sailing news, Team Brunel jumped out an early lead at the start of leg 9 of the Volvo Ocean Race, which resumed with a crossing of the North Atlantic. Team Brunel currently sit in 3rd place overall, but can challenge for the overall victory with double points on offer for the 3,300 nautical mile trip from Newport, Rhode Island to Cardiff in Wales. Matt Frere hold the overall lead by 11 points over 3rd place Brunel, but lead 2nd place Dong Fen by just 3 points. The sports question that we asked on Newsroom today is, what was your sporting highlight over the weekend? We asked you to send your comments at SABC Newsroom, and a couple of you had this to say about what captured your attention over the past 2 days. Nazim Khudbom says Free State Stars for making history, beating Maritzburg United to lift the Nedbank Cup trophy after 24 years in the game. Nazim also saying that he must have had a very busy Saturday with the FA Cup as well as the Nedbank Cup final. We all did, in between a royal wedding. He says, my highlight of the weekend, Chelsea beating Manchester United. And next weekend it's all about the UEFA Champions League final. Okay, that's how we come to the end of your sports. Remember, you can still get involved on social media at SABC Newsroom, telling us what your highlight of the weekend was, what your sporting highlight of the weekend was. Time now to check in with the weather.
Thank you very much, Availin. Good morning to our viewers at home. Let's take a look now at this satellite image that we have, and a couple of things to notice. First of all, the storm here in places such as Burkina Faso moving towards the southwestern parts of Mali, and it's expecting rain in places such as Ouagadougou there. And of course, here in the central parts in South Sudan, there's also another storm there expected to bring rainfall in places such as the Central African Republic for the rest of the day. And of course, here we're starting to see some clearing in places such as Cameroon going towards the southern parts in the DRC. But of course, a closer look is revealing a bit more detail, especially in the southern parts. This closer look now is showing us temperatures, current temperatures as I speak to you. Right now in Cape Town, there's a bit of rain that is being reported, and a maximum temperature, well, not a maximum, but a current temperature of 17 degrees. And look at this, the wind is a bit strong at about 22 kilometers per hour northwesterly. This is very typical of the conditions that you have just ahead of that cold front. And looking at places just ahead of Cape Town, we're still seeing now warm to hot temperatures here for the morning, at a temperature of 21 there in George, with winds reaching about 30 kilometers per hour as we speak. So it is quite windy here along the southern coastline. There's been high seas as well that have been reported, and there's a watch from the Weather Service to watch out for high seas from the southern coastline from Cape Agalas going towards George and Knysna. Otherwise, for the eastern parts now, we're seeing clear conditions, warm temperatures in places such as Durban at 23, that's La Mercy Airport. But over the interior, it's a different case altogether. We're seeing lower temperatures right now. Bloemfontein currently at 12 degrees, very cold, even here in Oortam at 14 degrees, and Kimberley at 13 there as well. But now I'm going to show you what will happen. Those were the current temperatures. This is what we're expecting. Expecting some isolated showers here over the central Free State going towards Lesotho and the eastern parts of the Eastern Cape, but these are for earlier on in the morning showers. Otherwise, over the western parts or the southwestern parts of the country, already some showers. I showed you there on that meter in Cape Town. Already it's raining, just some light rain, and we're expecting it to move in towards the adjacent interior, towards places such as Worcester. And of course, along the southern coastline, we're still seeing Cape Agalas as we're expecting some rain for today. And tomorrow, those isolated showers are just expected here over the extreme southwestern parts of the country. Otherwise, clear skies for most of the interior. But now, your temperatures, I showed you earlier the current temperatures. Now I'm showing you what we're expecting for the rest of the day. You see, they kept on, they're saying the maximum forecasted is 16, meaning that as it is 17 right now, to stay there between 16 and 17 for the rest of the day. While in PE, we're expecting a maximum of 25. In Durban, a maximum of 27 is expected, and currently it's at 21, so it will be quite warm in those areas. Otherwise, over the interior, Bloemfontein, which is sitting at 12 degrees currently as we speak, is expecting to reach a high of 19 degrees. Pretoria expecting a high of 22. It's a bit warm. But as we move further north now, we're seeing hotter temperatures starting here in the southern parts of Madagascar, Maputo, peaking at 31 degrees with hotter temperatures all in the southern parts of Madagascar. But as we move towards Zimbabwe, we're seeing hot temperatures in the south, 27 in Beitbridge, but as we move towards northern parts, cloudy conditions, and of course some lower temperatures there at 22 in Harare. Just further north now, quickly we're looking at these isolated showers expected for the day parts of especially around about midday, expecting only isolated showers, but more rains here over the central interior of the DRC. Just to show you temperatures, very hot temperatures over the interior, Kinshasa peaking at 13. That's all I have due to time, but there's another weather update later on, so stay tuned.
SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
No. Yes. Yes.
Sports Live every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m.
Special assignment. Crime keeps the society in terror and pain. Why so?
If someone phones me, just phones me, tells me, okay, look here, you need a silver. And I get you all driving, I'll take it.
What pushes normal people to be so hard, heartless, and brutally kill one another?
The other side of it could be more for their own psychological need. It might be part of a sexual fantasy that they have. It could be about power and control.
After proper investigation is followed, the perpetrator gets arrested.
It's quite a massive process. And ultimately, they are criminals, so I think justice is served.
Emotional scars remain.
We would pay any price to get him back, and the sad reality is that it's gone.
Special assignment. We unravel the truth every Sunday at 21:30.
Shervin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Tebo Mokobo, SABC Ufa go tswa mo Russia.
Neha Punya, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Takwana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
Well, triple murder accused Henry van Breda will know his fate today when Judge Suraj Desai hands down judgment in the High Court in Cape Town any moment from now. Johannesburg police have launched a manhunt for 8 suspects after yet another cash and transit robbery yesterday afternoon. The ANC will brief the media today on the outcomes of its land summit, which took place over the weekend.
And in sport, the South African Rugby Union, who have a close working relationship with sport broadcaster SuperSport, are surprised and concerned by the walkout of former player Ashwin Willemse on live TV on Saturday.
Hello and welcome to SABC's Newsroom. I'm Shante Yankees. Coming up in this hour, the Van Breda judgment is to be handed down. We have seen that Henry is currently seated in the dock. Valen Kirtley, however, is standing by with all your sporting highlights coming up this hour. Very good morning to you, Valen. You well this morning?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Shante. Good to be with you and good to be with our viewers. We will bring you a sports bulletin at 1:45 the top of the hour on Newsroom today. First, though, let's get your top news stories with Shante.
Well, leading at the top of the hour, Johannesburg police have launched a manhunt for 8 suspects after yet another cash and transit robbery yesterday afternoon. The suspects ambushed security guards at ShopRite in Southdale and they fled with an undisclosed amount of cash. Police say the security guards were on their way to collect money from the store when the robbery happened. The incident comes just days after yet another robbery in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. Mangoba Mqunu reports.
Frantic scenes minutes after the attack in Southdale, south of the city. This time, an explosive was placed in the vehicle but not detonated. 8 armed suspects made off with an undisclosed amount of cash. It comes amid a spate of cash-in-transit heists in Gauteng. On Thursday, this brazen twin attack in Boksburg. The following day, another in Pretoria, and a similar scene in neighboring Mpumalanga on Thursday.
We are in the middle of what I term a cash-in-transit epidemic. I mean, the statistics tell a story of an extraordinary increase in this particular crime. 2014, 180 heists. At the end of last year, 378. And this year, 5 months in, we're already at 111.
The South African Banking Risk Information Center says on average, there is 1 cash-in-transit robbery per day. Police insist they are not losing the battle.
In Boksburg, we managed to arrest 5 suspects. Again, we managed to recover rifles in Fortsburg that we believe they might have, those people were planning a robbery or cash in transit heist. In that incident, we believe that we prevented another robbery.
Suspects involved in the Boksburg heist are expected to appear in court on Monday. Highly organized heist in broad daylight. Police say they are now investigating if the recent incidents are linked. They've launched a manhunt for the suspects. This, as a search for 5 others involved in Thursday's attack, also continues. Mangoba Mqunu, SABC News in Southdale, in Johannesburg.
Well, triple murder accused Henry Van Breda will know his fate in the Cape Town High Court today. Van Breda pleaded not guilty to axing both his parents, brother, and seriously injuring his 17-year-old sister, Marley. He's also facing charges of defeating the ends of justice. Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa will this morning officially launch the Tumamina campaign. Let's go live to the ANC headquarters at Latuli House to SABC's Mzwandile Mbeje. Very good morning to you. We do know that day 1 of the campaign took place in Tembisa last week. What are we expecting this morning?
Thank you, Shante. Is the continuation of the Tumamina campaign that we saw launched on Friday, where 10,000 volunteers would fan across the country to really take this message to the communities. And this message is about service delivery. This message is about making sure that people fight corruption. And you would remember that this catchphrase came perhaps not as, I don't think it was intended. When President Ramaphosa delivered his maiden State of the Nation address in February, then he used the Tumamina phrase, which is taken from the song of Rahiu. But it simply just caught the entire country, and everyone felt they wanted to be part of this Tumamina campaign. So I think the ANC then took the opportunity to then say, whilst people seem to be very interested in this, and then we would really launch this Tumamina campaign, because it's about individuals wanting to take part in making this country a better place. It's about individuals really wanting to be counted as this country is moving forward. And of course, you'd remember this is the year of Nelson Mandela and the year of Mama Sisulu. So had they lived, they would be turning 100 years. So they are using these volunteers in the name of these two icons. They are the volunteers of Tata Nelson Mandela and the volunteers of Mama Albertina Sisulu.
Thank you very much for giving us some of the details. And with that being said, we cross to the Cape Town High Court. A Judge Desai has just entered the courtroom. We've also seen Henry van Breda in the dock. Judgment is set to be handed down moments from now. We cross live.
The emblem.
Are you talking about these?
Or? No, I'm talking the emblems. Thank you. I'm removing the emblems because I do not want to look or sound like Donald Trump. Thank you. By agreement between the parties, I do not propose reading the entire judgment. I read a summary of the judgment, although it's quite long. So I've permitted the accused to sit down whilst I read the summary of this judgment. This is an alleged parricide. The accused, Henry Christo van Breda, is indicted before us for the murder of his brother, father and mother, and the attempted murder of his sister. He faces a further charge of defeating or obstructing the administration of justice. The state contends that the deadly assaults upon the victims were committed by the accused, who repeatedly hit them with an axe or a similar sharp object, and committed other unknown acts of violence. The last charge relates to the apparently false information given to the police and other related activities in order to mislead them as to the true identity of the perpetrator of these crimes. The incidents underpinning these charges occurred at 12 Gosker Street, De Zalza Estate, Stellenbosch. The accused, his parents Martin and Teresa van Breda, and his siblings Rudy and Mali van Breda, resided at the said premises. The accused was the middle child. I shall refer to the victims by their first name for the purposes of this judgment. It is convenient to do so. On the morning of 27 January 2015, the emergency services, the EMS, were summoned by the accused to the residence. A true copy of the emergency call made by the accused at 7:12 in the morning was handed up in evidence and played in court. Upon their arrival on the scene, the police found the accused at or near the front entrance of the property. He was only wearing a pair of sleeping shorts and socks. Superficial injuries on parts of his body were discernible. Spelled wrong. Two of the deceased, Martin and Rudy, were found inside the bedroom on the first floor. This was the bedroom used by the accused, and Rudy, Teresa, and Mali were found nearby in the doorway. This was the bedroom used by the accused and Rudy. Teresa and Mali were found nearby in the doorway, or rather the passage area, outside the same room. Mali was still alive, but barely so. The deceased in Mali had severe head injuries, probably caused by the axe found on the stairway leading up to the first floor. Although Mali did not succumb to her injuries, the injuries sustained by her are similar to the injuries sustained by the deceased. These events lead to the case before us. The accused pleaded not guilty in respect of all the charges, and an extensive written plea explanation was placed before the court. In the said statement, it was inter alia alleged that the persons responsible for the attack upon the Breda family were unknown intruders, one of whom wore dark clothes, gloves, and a balaclava-type mask. The accused and the attacker were involved in a physical altercation during which the accused sustained injuries. The accused disarmed the attacker, and in pursuit of the fleeing attacker, the accused fell down the stairs. The accused got up and followed the attacker to the outside via the kitchen or back door. The emergency services were not called, as the accused did not have a number for them. Instead, he tried calling his girlfriend, Bianca. Upon re-entering the house, the accused then lost consciousness on the stairs and is unable to state whether this was due to shock or the injuries sustained by him, or to a combination of both. He was unsure for how long he was unconscious. In any event, when conscious again, he endeavored to find the emergency number and lit a cigarette to calm down. And because of his Australian accent and because he stutters as a child, he spoke slowly and calmly to the emergency operator. The legal issue: it's the state's contention that the accused is responsible for the attack on his family and that he subsequently tampered with the crime scene. The state's case is based on circumstantial evidence. There is no direct evidence implicating the accused. The state contends that no one else could reasonably possibly have committed the crimes, and that the accused version, that is, of intruders committing the crime, is simply not true. Defense counsel argued that the circumstantial evidence presented by the state to prove its case against the accused does not warrant as the only reasonable inference that the accused was the person who attacked his family. It was argued that the circumstantial evidence by the state supports the accused and not the state's narrative. The van Breda family, Mr. Cornelius Andries van Breda, the brother of the deceased Martin van Breda, described the van Breda family as a close-knit, decent family with no enemies. The accused himself testified that the family had no real enemies, and he was not aware of anybody who had a grudge against the family. The children, Rudy, the accused, and Mali, were born on 10 July 1992, 1 November 1994, and 12 October 1998, respectively. The family emigrated to Perth, Australia in the beginning of 2006. The accused matriculated at Scots College in 2012. Martin, Teresa, and Mali van Breda relocated permanently back to South Africa in January 2014. Martin had launched a new school project in South Africa called EduGrow. They relocated primarily because of the demands of Martin's business and Teresa's desire to live closer to her family. Rudy and the accused remained in Australia and studied at the University of Melbourne. Mali attended school in Somerset West, and upon the family's return to South Africa, the family moved from Gordons Bay to the Zalza estate in about March 2014. The accused terminated his studies in Australia and joined the rest of his family at the Zalza estate in August 2014. The members of the van Breda family were described as well-educated, intelligent, and well-managed. With regard to the security and layout of the Zalza estate is obviously of importance in this case. The general layout and the functionality of the system. The accused alleged that the Van Breda family had been attacked by an intruder during the early hours of the morning, and shortly before 04 hours 24, when he made his first call to his ex-girlfriend, Bianca van der Westhuizen. The Zalza Winelands estate near Stellenbosch is what is termed the medium security estate. Ms. Marcia Rousseau was employed at the Zalza estate as security manager since February 2014, explained the layout of the estate with reference to the map, which is before us as Exhibit P2. The house at 12 Gloucester Street is indicated with a red rectangle block on the map. On the right side of the map is the R44, a well-known public road. At the top of the map is the Protea Hotel, Klein Zalza, the Terroir restaurant, and the Techno Park area. On the left side of the map are surrounding farmlands, an open field, including Speed Farm, and at the bottom of the map is the airfield and municipal land. A river runs through the estate. Thorburn Security, hereinafter referred to as Thorburn, contracted by the estate, provided the security personnel who manned the entrance gate as well as the guards who patrolled the estate. Thorburn monitored all the electric fence alarms, beams, and the camera surveillance system of the estate. This was done remotely from a room situated in Breda, that's the control room. The estate is protected by an electrified fence around its perimeter, which is approximately 7.5 kilometers. That's the perimeter fence. A barrier fence, anti-dig at some places, cameras at certain points, patrols by security guards, and of course the access gates. Proper access to the estate can only be gained through the 3 access controls gates. The unmanned gates were generally kept locked. The river is protected with an electrified fence as well. At the river inlet is a gate and barbed wire stretched across the river. Mr. Jaco Pedersen, the previous security manager, confirmed that the estate had and still has more than one phase of security. Thermal cameras were installed during Mr. Pedersen's tenure that could pick up or spot something or somebody 20 meters from the fence. A further phase were the security guards who did patrols. The security guards served as foot soldiers. Visible patrolling by driving around was also an important deterrent. Mr. Pedersen testified that if a camera did not spot a person, the alarm would alert the security personnel of the person's presence. When and if an alarm was activated by an object or person touching the electric fence, the remote monitoring room in Paro would, upon seeing that an alarm had been activated, send out the shift manager or first responder to that specific area. It is common cause that the Van Breda family residence at 12 Gloucester Street is situated more or less in the middle of the estate, in a fairly built-up part of the area, near the end of a cul-de-sac, and it is the second last house in the cul-de-sac. The court conducted an inspection in loco and recorded its findings with regard to the general layout of the estate and the house. Extensive evidence was presented with regard to the security of the estate and access to it. The night of the murders, was there a possible breach of security during the night of 27 January 2015? I'll deal first with the visitors and access control gates. No unknown visitors went through the access control main gate during the night of 27 January 2015. Nobody signed in at the main gate from 23 hours 57 until 07:05 the following morning. That's according to the report Exhibit Y, handed in actually by Defence Counsel. Ms. Rousseau verified the report with regard to access cards and the times persons went in and out of the estate. CCTV footage of unlocked comings and goings at the Klein Zalza Gate the morning of 27 January 2015 was presented by Defence Counsel. That's Mr. Botha, assisted by Mr. Matia. A restaurant and a lodge are located at Klein Zalza Estate at zone 39 and 40, which is situated quite some distance from the residential area of the Zalza, as can be seen on the map, Exhibit V1 and W. Ms. Rousseau conceded that a proper record had not been kept at the Klein Zalza Gate. Neither the security guards, the neighbours, Ms. Optwerf or Ms. Talliard, nor the accused testified about the presence of a suspect motor vehicle in the residential area of the Zalza estate. The Klein Zalza Gate is situated quite far from 12 Gosker Street, and there are probably more suitable places for a prospective perpetrator to gain access to the estate. Furthermore, Sir Sergeant Apollos testified that all the vehicles entering the estate had been accounted for, although statements of all the drivers had not been taken. The integrity of the perimeter itself, during the night of 26-27 January 2015, between 1800 hours and 07 the next morning, Mr. Lorenzo Africa did 5 patrol checks and found that everything was in order. He also did 3 bloodhound inspections, the last one at 02 hours 50 on 27 January 2015. During the course of the night, no alarms were activated and no trespassers, intruders were found or reported on the estate. If any such event had taken place, the monitor would have been activated and he would have responded. Therefore, on the face of it, there was no security breach the night of the murders. Mr. Africa checked the entire green barrier fence for holes the night of the murders. On 26 January, Mr. Edgar Weingaard reported for duty at approximately 1800 hours, as his shift started officially at 1900 hours. His shift entered 700 hours the next morning. Mr. Weingaard testified that nothing unusual was reported or spotted that particular night, neither on the camera footage afterwards. Nor on the camera footage afterwards. Nobody complained about strangers or any other undue occurrence. Mr. Weingaard testified that he did not notice any holes that night. There was also no report that Mr. Africa picked up anything at or near the fence. Mr. Weingaard testified that they patrolled the area approximately 6 to 7 times along the road close to the Van Breda residence. He did 2 so-called bloodhound patrols himself every night, but could not remember whether he assisted Mr. Africa with his patrols of the outside perimeter of the estate that particular night. He testified that the last bloodhound patrol ended at 02:50. I'll deal now with the functionality of the integrity of the fence. On 27 January 2015, when Mr. Weingaard reported again for night duty, he found nothing wrong with the fence. On 27 January, he went through all the video security footage and inspected the fence and gates physically. Mr. Weingaard testified that it was impossible for any intruder to have gained access to the estate during the night of the incident. Both Mr. Africa and Mr. Weingaard were confronted with an alleged alarm that went off at zone 39 at 1:37 on Tuesday, 27 January 2015, and a patrol that was conducted in that area at 01:41. See paragraph 5.5, paragraph 3 of Exhibit Y. They denied responding to an alarm and the possibility that an alarm was activated at 01:37 as suggested by Defence Counsel. There seems to be a discrepancy as to which one of the security personnel did the patrol at 01:41. The court is not persuaded that the patrol was done as a result of a response to alarm. The controller, Mr. Calvin Vergotin, from Thorburn Security, can be seen at his console on photographs taken at 1:37 on page 3, Exhibit Y. According to the report handed by the defense, the controller would have heard the audible alarm and seen the zone flashing in red. Ms. Rousseau confirmed that there would be a loud sound and pop-up screen on the monitor when an alarm is activated. It would cause an irritating sound meant to alert the controller. In the case of the so-called not true alarms, there would be no signs or lights, and the activation would go straight to the history of the computer. The alarm activated at 01:37 was described as a not true alarm. It was the normal activation alarm, and it went automatically into the history system report of the system. Mr. Rousseau testified that in case of not true alarms, a responder was not sent out to check, and Ms. Rousseau testified that the system was not available on the internet for anybody to learn the workings of the system. It was a so-called standalone system. The murders were probably committed between 04 and 04:24 on 27 January 2015. If it was a true alarm, a possible intruder would have wandered around the estate or hid on the estate for a few hours before committing the crimes later in the morning. No other crimes were committed at the Zalza estate during that night or were reported. If a possible intruder entered the estate at zone 39 or 40, he or they would have gone past a number of other houses before getting to Gosker Street. Such a person also had to leave the estate again, and no other alarms were registered after 03:36 and before 08:53 on 27 January. The last mentioned alarm was not reported as a suspicious alarm, and is probably a deliberate alarm to test the functioning of the fence or for another ordinary purpose. Immediately after Ms. Rousseau learned about the incident on 27 January 2015, she gave instruction for the perimeter fence to be inspected centimeter by centimeter in order to establish that there was no sign of entry to the estate. After the incident, Ms. Rousseau watched the video footage herself, and apart from the fence being inspected, nothing unusual or suspect was noted or reported. She requested the remote monitoring system to check the activation of the alarms and the cameras and furnish her with reports. On a question during cross-examination where it was possible for an intruder to dig a hole under the fence and enter the estate through the hole, Ms. Rousseau responded that there were no signs of footprints alongside the fence the morning after the murders. Defense counsel pointed out that the residents were active and could be seen running alongside the fence on CCTV footage on 27 January 2015 at 05:47. Ms. Rousseau responded that one could distinguish between footprints right next to the fence and footprints some distance away where the residents were active. During cross-examination, the accused agreed that it was a fair assessment to make that possible intruders had to go to a great deal of trouble to get into the estate surrounded by an electrified fence. He conceded that the intruders had to move from the perimeter fence undetected to the house in the central area of the estate. The intruders managed to find the Van Breda house with an open back door, took nothing inside the house. Nobody heard they heard them fleeing from the house, and they managed to exit the estate by going over or under the fence without the alarm being triggered. The accused could not say how the security was breached. He testified that there was a possibility that someone might have had access to a residence card and so gained access to the estate to commit these crimes. With that scenario, the card must have been consciously given to the intruder or stolen for that purpose. He then conceded, the accused then conceded, that the story with the card seems an unlikely scenario because his family had no real enemies. The neighbors of the Van Breda family, Ms. Stephanie Opthoff and Ms. Annelies Taljaard, testified that the estate was a safe and secure environment to stay in. Ms. Opthoff was of the opinion that the Zalza estate was probably the safest and most secure place in Stellenbosch and testified that she felt very safe living there. Ms. Taljaard testified that she felt comfortable and secure living in the Zalza estate. She felt so safe that she left the children at home when she went swimming in the mornings. None of them reported any suspicious person or incidents in the vicinity of Gosker Street the night of the murders. The only unusual event were the loud male voices coming from the Van Breda home. The accused confirmed that he never felt insecure, unsafe or threatened by living in the estate. They slept with open windows, without burglar bars, and keys in the doors without security gates. The back door was even left open or unlocked sometimes. It was submitted by the State Council, that's Ms. Galloway, assisted by Ms. Close, that the security measures of the estate, the location of the property on the estate, and the close proximity of the house made it highly improbable for any intruders to access the estate and the property in question, commit these crimes, and exit the property and estate without being detected. Despite lengthy cross-examination, the defense was unable to suggest or present evidence of a real breach of the security. Considering the probabilities, and in the light of what I've already said, the court is in agreement, this was with Galloway, that it is highly unlikely that the security was breached by an intruder from outside the Zalza estate. The emergency call and the demeanor of the accused. In the early hours of 27 January 2015, Janine Philander, employed as an operator by the City of Cape Town at the Emergency Communications Center, received a call from the accused. The audio recording of the call, Exhibit JJ, was played in court. The recording started at 07:12 and ended at 07:37. What is striking is the emergency call lasted 25 minutes. The accused appeared emotional while the audio recording was played in court. The accused confirmed that the sound clips of the emergency call were correct and the contents of it were what happened during the course of that call. The accused testified that he had a speech impediment and stuttered. He received speech therapy from grade 4 until grade 10. The accused said that he panicked, was breathing very fast, and lit a cigarette at the kitchen counter to calm himself down while the emergency call was dialing. He smoked 3 cigarettes in short succession, dropping them onto the floor where they burnt out. He said the reason for that was that his hands were shaking so much that the cigarettes just fell out of his hand. In normal circumstances, it was not acceptable for them to smoke in the house. The accused was taught the technique to speak slowly and calmly, because as soon as he started speaking fast, he would get stuck. When listening to the audio recording, it was quite clear to the court that the accused, in fact, stuttered slightly. Ms. Philander conceded that towards the end of the call, the accused appeared to be calmer than he was initially, and that it would have been the case because she stayed calm. It is apparent from the recording that it was not necessary for the operator at any specific time to request the accused to calm down. Although Ms. Philander conceded that the accused did nothing wrong when making the call, the lack of urgency and the demeanor of the accused during a disturbing and unduly long conversation with the emergency services seems highly unusual for a traumatized victim. The accused testified that he decided to contact the emergency services directly to save time and not make use of other obvious options to get help. During cross-examination, the accused was confronted with the fact that he verbalized certain emotions to the court, but it was not evident from the emergency court itself. The accused said he did not get angry because he was under the impression that they were having some sort of technical issue. He later testified that he was trying his best not to reflect his agitation and get as angry over the phone as he should have been. The accused testified that he did not get frustrated with the emergency services when they did not react quickly. He said he did nothing to convey his feelings of frustration to the operator, despite being in dire need. He rather suppressed those feelings of frustration. He felt that it would confuse the communication and not help. The accused testified that he was aware that it was a very serious situation, and during his evidence in chief, the accused testified that at that moment he was still under the impression that both Rudy and Mali were still alive. He heard gurgling sounds from above, that's above the stairs. Peculiarly enough, the accused made no mention to Ms. Philander that his brother was also alive. He only mentioned his sister being alive. During cross-examination by the state, the accused was unable to explain why he did not mention that two of his family members were still alive. The accused conceded that the gurgling sounds could have emanated from Mali only and not from both Rudy and Mali. Despite being uncertain in this regard, the accused stated it as a fact in his plea explanation that he could hear what sounded like Rudy making gurgling sounds in the room. The accused also stated during cross-examination that he immediately went and phoned the emergency services again, underline the word again, after regaining consciousness. This is simply an incorrect statement. Considering the timeline as set out in Exhibit UU, the accused never phoned the emergency services before. The accused did not phone the emergency service before he lost consciousness. He did an internet search for an ambulance at 4:27 and attempted to phone the emergency service from his mobile phone for the first time at 07:12. Dr. James Butler, a neurologist, who we shall hear of more later in this judgment, inter alia testified about the accused's behavior on the audio clip of his emergency call, during which he appears inappropriately calm and lacking in urgency given the gravity of the circumstances. Those words are in inverted commas. And also not knowing about his family status. Dr. Butler said he suspected the general public who heard it would be struck by the inappropriateness of the accused's behavior. The witness said it was consistent with the behavior of somebody or someone in a post-ictal state after a seizure. The audio recording of the emergency call is indeed a silent, unemotional, trustworthy, unbiased, and accurate witness to the accused's demeanor and seemingly inappropriate lack of emotion after the extremely traumatic events, as argued by the state. Although State Counsel conceded that not every person reacts the same in traumatic circumstances. It was argued that the emotional state of the accused during the call is inconsistent as being a victim of a crime and losing most of his family members. The accused was calm, fully conscious, and able to relay his version of the events to the police at the scene and later at the police station. Dr. Michelle van Zyl also described the accused as confident, not emotional, conversing casually, and relaxed the staff when he consulted with her later on the 27th. She noted that he was orientated to person, place, and time. If the accused's intention was to get help as quickly as possible by speaking to the emergency services directly, it does not explain why he first tried to contact Bianca van der Westhuizen, his girlfriend at the time, at 0424, before Googling the number for the emergency services at 0427 on 27 January. See in this regard Exhibit UU. The accused confirmed that the landline and mobile phone numbers indicated on Exhibit UU belonged to him and Bianca, and the home landline. He said he accepted that the information downloaded from the mobile phone was correct. Furthermore, the accused was confronted with the fact that he did not seek help from other obvious sources like neighbors, the Zalza security, or the other emergency numbers on the list against the fridge. And while on the cordless phone to the emergency services, he called a minor school friend, Instead, he called a minor schoolgirl residing in a hostel several times from his mobile phone. The accused explained he just wanted to speak to someone, and Bianca was pretty much his only friend in South Africa at the time. During cross-examination, the accused created the impression that he was not aware of the 24-hour emergency numbers in the fridge after staying permanently with his family for approximately 5 months, and also did not see it when he scanned through the numbers. The fridge was close to the kitchen counter and place where Sergeant Kleinans found 3 cigarette butts and a packet of cigarettes, as it can be seen in Exhibit A, 117 to 120. The distance from the kitchen counter to the fridge in the kitchen with the paper containing emergency telephone numbers was 1.53 meters. The accused's version in court was that he smoked the cigarettes at the kitchen counter while making a call from the landline. The cordless phone that was lying on the kitchen counter. He testified that if he reconsidered the list while on the phone with Ms. Philander, he would probably have ended up seeing the 24-hour emergency numbers. The accused conceded that he had the opportunity and should have called the Zalza security as well. He also conceded that they presumably would have been able to get the emergency services straight to their estate. He also did not think of calling the doctor, whose emergency number was also on the list. It is most unlikely that the accused was unaware of what emergency numbers or whose numbers were on the list, as the occupants of the house and workers were made aware of the numbers. The court is very cautious not to adopt an armchair approach when evaluating the conduct of the accused, who found himself in a very traumatic situation. Apart from the medical emergency numbers, the numbers of the control room, the security manager, and 4 friends were on the fridge list. In his plea explanation, the accused said that he struggled for a very long time trying to get the operator to send an ambulance. According to the accused, the operator seemed confused and he did not get the quick response he was expecting. He was trying his best to formulate a plan to get help as soon as possible. Yet the accused did not try any of the numbers on the fridge, from his mobile phone while being on a landline by the emergency services. As stated already, an ambulance could probably have been dispatched much quicker by phoning one of the numbers in the fridge than to Google an emergency number followed by a 25-minute call for help, followed by a 25-minute call for help. The very reason for the numbers being on the fridge was to use them in the case of an emergency and to be at the quick disposal of the person needing it. It is common cause that the accused did not attempt to alert the security of the Zalza with regard to the presence of an alleged and seemingly very dangerous intruder at large on the grounds of the estate. The court accepts that the well-being of the injured would take preference, especially in a traumatized person's mind, rather than the presence of a dangerous assailant. It is common cause also that the accused did not seek help from the security officers to obtain the medical assistance which his family so direly required. In his evidence in chief, the accused testified that he shouted for help in one way or the another, and I'm quoting there, when he saw the assailant attacking his brother. He said he could not remember what he said or if he said anything, but he made some sort of noise. The accused testified that he did not call for help from his neighbors when he went out of the back door after the attack. He said there was no particular reason why he did not call for help. With the benefit of hindsight, and that is something he should have done. That's what he says. The accused confirmed that the houses on the estate are close to each other. The accused conceded that Ms. Opthoff would have come and helped, but then he thought she could not do anything. He was of the opinion if it was not a medical professional, they would not have been able to help. The accused furnished different versions about the presence of a person that he encountered on the outside. In his plea explanation, the accused said he went outside via the front door while still on the phone to the emergency operator. When he was outside, he noticed someone as far as the accused could recall. He requested this person to get help. The accused could not recall who the person was. This is in paragraph 47 and 48 of the Exhibit J. He explained to the police, his statement to the police is silent in this regard. The accused merely stated that he went outside for a bit via the front door. Then he went back inside and waited for the emergency services in the kitchen, having some cigarettes while waiting. During cross-examination, the accused testified that the processes of the trial jogged a lot of his memory and that there is a statement in the police docket of a lady that was outside their house. He could not recall whether he mentioned it to the police or not. Surprisingly, he also testified that it did not seem relevant information to him. Such a person could possibly have assisted the police with information on the alleged intruders. The accused was not aware of what she had seen or known about the incident or the intruders. When probed again about his failure to mention it to the police, the accused responded that he was fairly sure that he did mention it to the police, but they just did not include it in his statement. He then testified that he did not deem it necessary to point it out to the police, that he sought help from a lady on the estate, and that he did not feel it necessary to mention it to the police. The accused testified that he did not deem it necessary to point it out to the police, that he sought help from a lady on the estate, and that he did not feel it necessary to point it out to the police. The accused testified that he did not deem it necessary to point it out to the police, that he sought help from a lady on the estate, and that the police had to find her. Both scenarios, as indicated by the accused, can simply not be true. He either told the police about the lady, or he did not deem it necessary to mention his encounter with the lady. In summary, as Ms. Galloway argued, the conduct of the accused after the attack on the family is inexplicable. The internet search for emergency services, while there was no need for it in the light of the list mounted on the fridge for emergency service, emergency purposes, not seeking assistance from neighbors living in close proximity, the failure to attempt to make use of the easily accessible security and emergency services available to the residents on the estate itself, the inability of the accused to explain sensibly why he opted to call Bianca, a minor schoolgirl living in the hospital, instead of other people who could render assistance, and his failure to attempt to assist his family medically or comfort them in their dying hour. Instead, he smoked 3 cigarettes. The failure to at least warn his family, his mother and sister, about the intruder in the boy's room after the attack on Rudy and his father can be added to what I've already said. The time period between the incident and the attempts to obtain assistance. On the accused version, the attack happened not long before 0424, the morning of 27 January 2015. Ms. Ophoff testified that she heard loud male voices with an aggressive undertone from the Van Breda residence the night of the murders, from about 2000 hours until 10:12 the night. The sound of the monitor for son woke her up at 0400 hours. She found it strange that both her sons were awake at 0400 hours in the morning, as the eldest son never woke up at night. The windows of the children's room opened towards the Van Breda residence. The accused attempted to call Bianca immediately after the attack when he went out at the back door at 0424 on 27 January. Taking into consideration the evidence of Ms. Ophoff, the incident probably took place at about 04 to 0424 on 27 January. The accused attempted to contact the emergency services for help at 7:12 for the first time. In other words, approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes later. The question is, and remains, what transpired during that period of time and the significance of that, if any? The loss of consciousness. The accused claimed that he lost his footing and had a severe fall during the pursuit of the attacker. He said he got up again and only lost consciousness later as he moved past the middle landing, ascending the stairs, and after having tried to Google the emergency numbers on the phone. The accused could not explain why he wanted to go upstairs again after returning from the back door. He was unsure whether he lost consciousness due to shock, seeing his mother and Mali, or to the injuries sustained by them, or to the injuries sustained by him when he fell down the stairs, or a combination of both. It's in paragraph 37 of his plea explanation. He allegedly lost consciousness or blacked out for 2 hours and about 40 minutes. The accused testified that he was initially very and even completely disorientated when he regained consciousness. He was confused for a while before he stood up from the stairs. He testified that when he saw Mali, he sort of snapped back into consciousness. Now, he was examined by general practitioners with regard to the possibility of a concussion. Dr. Lizette Albertser, a district surgeon from Stellenbosch, testified that she did not get a clinical picture of concussion when she examined the accused later that day at about 10:30. However, she did not perform further tests on the accused, and in this regard, Dr. Albertser testified that the knob on his forehead could have been caused by blunt force trauma, like a fall or an assault. Dr. Albertser testified that the person would not be disorientated for a long time in case of a light bump against the head. In case of a more serious injury, a person would be disorientated for a longer period, and the recovery time would be longer. Dr. Albertser testified that the person who suffered from concussion would not necessarily be unconscious, but the person's reactions would be delayed. During the first visit to Dr. Michelle van Zyl at Vergeleken Mediclinic, the accused was fully orientated. The witness had a good and proper conversation with the accused. And when the accused returned for the second time, accompanied by the police, he was still 100% orientated. The accused was orientated to person, place, and time. During the second visit, the accused answered specific questions coherently. With reference to the injury against his forehead, Dr. van Zyl testified that there were no signs of concussion or brain injuries, and the test done by her excluded the possibility of a concussion. The discoloration of the eyes could have been as a result of the bump or injury to the head, and Advocate Bertha asked whether it would be possible that the blood could flow from one eye to the other if a person had lain flat on his right side. Dr. van Zyl responded that it was not likely, but it was not impossible. To deal with the comments on the period of unconsciousness and brain injury by the specialist forensic pathologist, Dr. Timmensma. Dr. Marianne Timmensma is a medical specialist, and at the time of her testimony was employed at the clinical forensic unit at Victoria Hospital, Wynberg. Regrettably, for the services of this country, she has emigrated since testifying. Apart from forensic pathology, she also practiced clinical science. Dr. Diemensma testified that the swelling above the left eye and the bruise under the left eye of the accused were in keeping with blunt force injuries. The skin overlying these wounds was intact. The wounds to the head, swelling and bruises on the eye could be caused by a blow to the face or a fall. On the question whether the injuries would be consistent with a fall on the stairs, as the accused allegedly blacked out, Dr. Timmensma said that the accused could have fallen on the stairs because the back and head injuries were consistent with the fall. She testified there seemed to be minimal bleeding from the wounds. A tiny amount of blood was not enough to go into shock as a result of blood loss. Therefore, she was of the opinion that the accused would not have fainted due to blood loss. However, he could have fainted because of shock. Dr. Timmensma said that if a person had fainted because of a medical reason, his unconsciousness would have continued for some time. But in the case of a shock, a person would recover quickly. She did not expect the person to be out for hours. Bruising and injury might have caused a mild concussion, but she said Dr. Albertser did not mention anything about the disorientation. Dr. Timmensma further testified there were at least two causes for loss of consciousness. One was an emotional shock or trauma, the other was a medical reason. The witness explained that fainting was short-term with brief loss of consciousness. Emotional shock, for instance, when a person saw blood, would have symptoms like stress, lightheadedness, fast heartbeat, resulting in a person passing out and losing consciousness. The average duration is a couple of seconds to 1 minute at most. Low blood pressure increases once you fall to the ground. A person did not need medical help to recover. The second type was a form of shock because of blood loss or a bump to the head. The rate at which a person lost consciousness depended on the amount of blood loss. If a person lost less than 500 milliliters of blood, the person could tolerate that and not lose consciousness. And medical correction was necessary if a person experienced 15 to 30% blood loss. Such a person would need fluid replacement. And then we have the concession by Advocate Botha. Advocate Botha indicated that it was not the defense case that the accused lost consciousness due to blood loss. He indicated it was a defense case that the accused sustained a concussion, not a brain injury. Dr. Timmins conceded that the neurologist would be better placed to comment on the concussion, but said that she often dealt with head injuries sustained by patients and with concussions. Dr. Timmins said that the bump to the accused's left forehead and the discoloration could have resulted in concussion. Defense counsel put it to witness that the spelling of emergency service on the phone was wrong. She replied, if the accused was able to Google, he was not that confused. He knew what he was doing when he Googled emergency services. Then we have the evidence, the reasons advanced by the neurosurgeon for the loss of consciousness and the period, Dr. Dutroux. The witness, Dr. Michael Dutroux, he was called incidentally by the accused or defense. The defense witness, Dr. Michael Dutroux, is a semi-retired specialist neurosurgeon in private practice in March 1993. Regarding the version of the accused and the loss of consciousness due to shock or his injuries, the witness testified that all retrograde and post-traumatic amnesia was a feature of traumatic brain injuries, including concussion. He goes on further to say any loss of consciousness lasting 2 hours and 40 minutes, following a head injury, was an indication of a mild to moderately severe traumatic brain injury. The witness said he doubted, however, that this kind of injury that could not be picked up on an MRI scan would have resulted in retrograde amnesia, which is a loss of recall of events before the insult, as it was an indicator of severe or more severe brain injury. It was not possible to determine ex post facto whether the accused has lost consciousness or whether he merely lost the recall of the incident. Most importantly, Dr. Trevoux testified that he did not examine the accused and rightfully conceded that he was asked to comment blindly on the memory loss and loss of consciousness. Dr. Trevoux was asked to comment on whether the accused could have had a 2 hour, 40 minutes post-traumatic amnesia spell. The witness responded that it was a common scenario to lose consciousness, but said that he needed more information to determine the length of post-traumatic amnesia. Dr. Trevoux conceded that history was very important to the concept of diagnostic medicine to eliminate possibilities to get to the cause of a problem. There are, as he correctly stated, many causes for loss of consciousness. The loss of consciousness and the significance of the blood flow patterns. Captain Marius Joubert has 27 years' experience in the South African Police Service. He is currently stationed at the Forensic Science Laboratory in Plattebrug. He's a bloodstain pattern analyst and forensic crime scene expert. His qualifications and experience are set out in paragraph 2 to 4 of Exhibit D1. He commented on the blood flow patterns on the body of the accused and a possible fall, which could be related to the issue of concussion, unconsciousness, and the approximately 2 hours of 40 minutes timeline. The accused testified that in pursuit of the fleeing attacker, he lost his footing and fell down the stairs. He landed on his back near the bottom of the top half of the stairs. During cross-examination, the accused said that he fell as he was throwing the axe after the attacker. He explained how the actual fall happened and whether he was falling backwards or forwards. He ended up on his back. He could not recall rolling forward, but if he had tumbled down the stairs, if there had only been one forward roll, alternatively he had slid onto his back and down the stairs. Captain Joubert was of the opinion that the flow patterns on the upper part of the accused's body suggest that the accused's torso was erect when the flow pattern was created, with insignificant movement of the upper body before the bloodstain pattern dried. A slight deviation of the blood flow occurred just above the left nipple, and it was caused by the pooling of blood at the bottom of the flow pattern. The blood was pushed to one side depending on the contours of the skin. Captain Joubert accordingly confirmed that the flow patterns originated from one superficial stab wound sustained by the accused on his left upper torso, and that the cut wounds on his forearm did not indicate deviation and therefore insignificant movement. Then, with regard to the loss of consciousness, we have the evidence of the neurosurgeon, Dr. Butler. The accused was of the view that he possibly passed out because of the shock seeing Marley and his mother at the top landing or from the fall down the stairs earlier. The accused confirmed that he had never before suffered such a random loss of consciousness for more than 2.5 hours. He confirmed that he did not consult any doctor regarding his loss of consciousness for that long period. And he consulted Dr. James Butler after the conclusion of his evidence in this case. And when his girlfriend, or rather her father, Dr. Janssen van Rensburg, arranged for him to consult with Dr. Butler on 9 November 2017. Dr. Butler was approached as a result of an alleged incident that occurred on 8 November 2017, where the accused lost his memory without warning, and inter alia his arms and legs were shaking for approximately 1 minute. Dr. Butler is a neurologist with a private practice at the Constantia Medical Clinic since 1998 to date. He's also a part-time consultant neurologist at Tygerberg Hospital and the University of Stellenbosch, as also the Department of the Neurology at Hertz Hospital and UCT. Dr. Butler testified that the diagnostic process starts with pre-test probabilities, which could change when seeing and examining a patient. This comment by the witness is significant in the court's view, as will be pointed out later. Dr. Butler testified that there are 3 possible diagnoses. 1, psychogenic or non-epileptic seizures. It's the loss of blood to the brain caused by the loss of consciousness. Secondly, an epileptic seizure. Or thirdly, malingering, which is a deliberate conscious attempt to fabricate the medical condition. It can be described as a fabrication of symptoms of mental or physical disorders. The history of the accused problem was obtained from the accused and his girlfriend, who was present during the consultation. Dr. Butler said that she, that is the girlfriend, was present at the consultation because he needed an independent account after what happened after the patient had a blackout. Sorry, Dr. Butler said that's the girlfriend, was present at the consultation because he needed an independent account of what had happened after the patient had a blackout or loss of consciousness. They need as many people as possible to give a collateral history. Unfortunately, in this case, only his girlfriend. The witness said he was aware that the girlfriend could be part of the malingering. History taking is obtained spontaneous history and systematic interrogation. The purpose of the systematic process was to establish pre-existing symptoms and individualized systems. The accused had no family history of seizures, no childhood seizures, and no injuries or trauma to the brain or infection in the brain. The accused and his girlfriend described 2 events or episodes when the accused became abruptly amnesic in approximately February 27, 16, and on 8 November 2017. No history of incontinence of urine or laceration of the tongue was present in any of the instances. With regard to the instance in February 2016, the accused consumed at least 6 glasses of wine and apparently did not have a lot of sleep the night before. The accused also reported intermittent shivers of his whole body while completely awake and dated these shivers to the early part of 2015. There are a myriad of symptoms of which only 2 are indicative of generalized seizures, and all the others are indicative of focal epilepsy. The 2 symptoms for generalized seizures are brief absences, which the accused denied the presence of, and a funny twitch or jerk. According to Dr. Butler, the only system the accused confirmed were jerks. Dr. Butler testified that many people do not see their seizures. People could live their lives experiencing these jerks without affecting their daily function. When examining the subsequent EEG reports and seeing the abnormalities, the doctor was confident that the accused had epilepsy. The abnormalities found could be seen on the EEG on page 38, exhibit G, a 10-second excerpt from a 24-hour recording, and which is also discussed on page 32 of his report. They monitored him for the night, and a 10-second excerpt of the monitoring was played in court. And in that 10-second excerpt, there's a slight twitch of the thumb. A video clip of a thumb movement by the accused was added in as an exhibit, and the other video with a bigger movement by the accused is exhibit G2. The witness diagnosed the accused with juvenile myoclonic epilepsy, JME, and it appears that JME starts in the teenage years or 20s as the age of onset, and sometime even in a person's 30s. People could suffer from JME and experience a generalized tonic-clonic epileptic seizure, also known as a grand mal seizure or a fit. And Dr. Butler testified that he was certain of his diagnosis, that he has ever been of anyone with an epileptic condition. Stated clearly, the court accepts that the accused indeed suffered from a seizure in November 2017. That's when Dr. Butler saw him. And it is not necessary to go into the details of the evidence in this regard. In November 2017, Dr. Butler not only consulted with the accused, he also did tests before making the diagnosis. The only other source of information about the episode in approximately February 2016 is the girlfriend of the accused. She did not testify, and therefore the court is not in a position to evaluate the independence and reliability of her version of the history. The accused himself did not testify about the circumstances pertaining to the incidents in February 2016. Even if he did not remember much about it, his girlfriend surely would have alerted him to it. Therefore, the court makes no finding in this regard. The fact is, the fact that Dr. Butler did not examine the accused or do tests on him in February 2016. Dr. Butler testified that it is highly likely that the accused has generalized clonic seizure in 2016, and he conceded that he will only use the word definite when he has a video EEG running on somebody. This obviously didn't happen at the time. The court will come back to the relevance of this issue at a later stage in this judgment. During the cross-examination of Dr. Timmensma, it was put to the witness that the accused would say that he was certain that the paramedics did not clean his wounds. As the person who took his photo wanted to document his wounds, as they were at the time. Dr. Butler stated in paragraph 25 that the accused had no recall of some of the questions put to him after the incident and was told that he did not answer some of the questions. Dr. Butler could not say by whom the questions were put to the accused. None of the police witnesses testified that the accused did not answer the questions, and no such allegations were made during cross-examination of the state witness. The accused even gave an account of the events to Captain Steyn at the crime scene. The accused gave a detailed account at the police station and in court of the sequence of events after he had woken up until the arrival of the police, and he had a coherent conversation with EMS and Captain Steyn. On behalf of the accused, it was put to Sergeant Kleinhans that the accused put his shoes at the bottom of the stairs before the arrival of the police. Even more telling was a statement put by Advocate Bertha to Sergeant Kleinhans that the accused will say that the piece of the cement from the floor as one entered the front door was not chipped out from the floor until he left the scene. These statements are indicative of an acute awareness of one's surroundings. The accused remembered observing a blood mark when he got up after regaining consciousness. According to Dr. Butler, the accused remembered, quote, bits of the interrogation, close quotes, at about midday. From his testimony, it was clear that the accused contested the contents of his comprehensive statement to the police, Exhibit SS, taken the same day, being fairly certain of the events that transpired at the police station. The accused had a bump against his head and discoloration of the eyes after the incident. Dr. Butler testified that in this instance, there was no other possible causes of amnesia, but he accepts that there was an amnesia. The accused was perfectly lucid while he walked up the stairs immediately prior to becoming amnesic. His vivid recall of certain moments is evidence of the relative preservation of the brain's functioning, including memory, in the minutes leading up to his amnesia. The lack of retrograde amnesia is a hallmark of an epileptic seizure. That's according to Dr. Butler. Patients with moderate and severe traumatic brain injuries frequently have varying durations of retrograde amnesia. Dr. Butler concluded that an epileptic seizure represents the only plausible explanation for the abrupt onset of amnesia without premonitory symptoms. The witness was of the opinion that the corroborative evidence suggests that the accused blacked out for a period of 2 hours and 40 minutes before he woke up to exactly the same place where he became amnesic, lying face down on the stairs. According to the accused, it was dark when he became amnesic and light when he awoke, indicating a long period of amnesia consistent with independent evidence. In paragraph 38 of his report, Dr. Butler listed possible causes for this. He testified that a traumatic brain injury can readily cause unconsciousness for the entire period of 2 hours and 40 minutes of lying in exactly the same position and not simply being amnesic. In the event of a brain injury, the period of loss of consciousness would indicate a moderate, diffuse traumatic brain injury.
And indeed, just coming out there of that judgment that is currently being handed down by Judge Siraj Desai in the Western Cape High Court in the from Breda murder case. We do know that that judgment is currently being handed down, is being summarized, but also underway in Johannesburg this morning. The ANC is set to be briefing the media today on the outcomes of its land summit, which took place over the weekend. We cross now live to Lutuli House in Johannesburg CBD.
From News 24. She's the leader of the pack. I'm going to ask Comrade Lamola to come and present to you in brief terms the outcomes of the land summit. Comrade Lamola.
Thank you very much, Comrade Pule Mabe, the national spokesperson of the ANC. Comrade Enoch Kodongwana is chairperson of the ETC. The ANC held a workshop over the weekend with an intention to operationalize the outcome of the National Conference resolutions from Nasrec, particularly the resolution on the land question. In doing so, the African National Congress acted to its traditions and its true values, because since its formation, the ANC was about the land. So the ANC, since its birth, from its founding, the ANC was committed to the struggle for the return of the land of Africans, taken through colonialisms, exemplified by the following revolutionary proclaims by the 1923 Bill of Rights. The Bantu and its inhabitants of the Union have, as human beings, the indisputable right to a place of adopt and this land of their fathers and mothers. And furthermore, that all Africans have, as the sons and daughters of this soil, the God-given right to the unrestricted ownership of land in this, the land of their birth. So the ANC was informed by the various evolutions of its conference resolutions, particularly the Freedom Charter, the Ready to Govern document, and there were various commissions in the workshop which focus on various areas, broad areas: agrarian reform, redistribution, communal property land, and so forth. But and there were also presentations from the chairperson of the high-level panel, Comrade Khalima, and various experts. With regard to, it also focused on the constitutional review process, Section 25, and what should be the approach of the ANC in that regard. But it also focused on issues that the ANC needs to attend to as a matter of agency or immediately. With regard to Section 25, the ANC should adopt a more comprehensive, multi-pronged approach that is based on the following steps. Immediately use Section 25 of the Constitution to press ahead with the expropriation of land where we can, in order to test the argument that the Constitution permits expropriation without compensation in certain circumstances. Immediately pass the expropriation bill and land redistribution bill in order to bring greater clarity to the transformative intent and impact of the Constitution. Ensure that a constitutional review process is used to avoid ambiguity and to bring greater clarity to Section 25(2)(b) of the Constitution. If it is found that the current legal formulation, including the Constitution and any other law, impede or slow down effective land distribution in order to ensure the realization of the principle of expropriation without compensation, therefore it must be amended to bring that clarity, to put without compensation. The ANC approaches this discussion on Section 25 and constitutionalism, informed by its historical position, that the ANC is an architect, has always been an architect of the constitutional democracy and our own constitutional democratic order. So therefore, the ANC will always defend the Constitution as a transformative document. And the ANC views the Constitution of this country as a mandate for transformation. And if we believe that there is anything that might impede transformation, we must enhance the Constitution. So from our perspective, the Constitution is not a sellout document. It's a document that has got transformative imperatives, and it is very clear in terms of which legislations must be enacted to enhance transformation. So that's how the ANC views any discussion with regard to the Constitution. The commissions also reflected on the high-level panels, and this is what they said, in particular with regard to what the high-level panel said. That the high-level panel said, and its finding, that the reasons for our failures, particularly on land reform, is misguided policies, insufficient budget, failure to align the laws with the Constitution, corruption, inefficient government systems, failure to fully exploit constitutional space, especially in the area of expropriation without compensation, incorrect interpretation of the Constitution. And therefore, majority of the commissions have spoken very clearly against corruption in the process of land reform, and majority of the commissions, I will now give you some of the aspects which they've spoken about. Firstly, the one on Section 25. This is what it said. We must immediately use Section 25 of the Constitution to press ahead with the expropriation of land where it can be done in order to test the argument. Immediately pass the expropriation bill and land distribution in order to bring greater clarity to the transformative intent and the impact of the Constitution. You'll remember that the expropriation bill has been returned from Parliament on many occasions, withdrawn, returned since 2008. So we are saying Parliament must pass the expropriation bill now and insert clauses there that says we must expropriate land without compensation and state under which circumstances and what kind of land must be expropriated. But we have also said Parliament must also pass a redistribution legislation, because we have not yet passed the redistribution legislation. And for us to achieve certain aspects, particularly urban land, the land that is lying in some instances for speculative purposes, buildings that are lying fallow in some areas, and also to deal with some of the commercial large lands in the country, we need the Redistribution Act. And this is the key focus now for the ANC. We are saying restitution, we must finalize whatever is there in restitution, the claims and so forth. But the next move and the big project for us is the redistribution bill, which we view it as which will be more impactful, because it will not only rely on claimants proving their claims. But the workshop has also said there must be an immediate cessation of farm evictions for farm dwellers and farm workers across the country, and government is called upon to be in action to ensure that this does not happen anymore, because provinces like the Western Cape, KZN and Mpumalanga are usually affected by farm evictions, particularly in some of the provinces like the Northwest and Limpopo. But KZN, Mpumalanga and the Western Cape are the hardest hit. So we're calling upon all departments in government to work together and ensure that there is no farm evictions proceeding as we move forward. But also we've said this must also be dealt with at the presidential level. The president must appoint some kind of a panel that will enable him and guide him in this process to stop farm evictions immediately. But also the commission dealing with this aspect has also said farm dwellers' claims, I think there are about 22,000 of them, they must be quickly resolved. The land in those areas must be immediately expropriated without compensation, immediately, because we believe Section 25 does not stop the government from expropriating land where farm dwellers are currently residing and give it immediately to farm dwellers and the labor tenants. Because this land, no one can claim to have been using productively. These farm dwellers and labor tenants have been working in these farms for many years. So there's no production that is going to be affected, but anyway, they've got a valid claim. So we are saying there's a case that is already before the Supreme Court of Appeal. The rural development must conclude on this case and give these farm dwellers their title deeds in this land. It's about 22,000 of them. We have also said, with regard to communal land, it's also going to be a discussion further in the NEC, but the position of the NEC is to democratize all communal land in the country and enable people in rural areas to reside and have security of tenure. On the urban land, the Redistribution Bill or Act is going to address the issue, which is the current burning issue across the country, particularly on urban residences, that there is not enough urban land for the migration of people into the urban cities. So the Redistribution Act must be used to enable people to have urban land, but also state-owned entities must be enabled. We must amend legislations that relates to big state-owned entities that own urban land, to release that land, to give it to people across the country, particularly in the urban areas. And I think the government of Gauteng has already started. But institutions like Transnet, PRASA, and other huge state entities have urban land in some of the areas, but laws do not allow them because they are used for their purpose, but not for the purpose of resettlement. So we need to deal with laws that will enable them to do that. But we've also said we need to also have a comprehensive policy that will address all land issues as per the recommendation of the high-level panel. So in a nutshell, those are the key findings or key recommendations from the commissions. So we'll just take questions. I did not read the press statement as it is. I've just summarized. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Let's allow the Makulu of ETC.
Whoa. The first thing I want to make, this was a workshop. A workshop does not make decisions, binding decisions for the national executive of the ANC. So what we are reading to are recommendations to the National Executive Committee, which is sitting next weekend. I wanted to clarify that. So these are subject to endorsement by the National Executive Committee. I wanted to clear that. The second thing I wanted to say, given the nature of the issues we're dealing with, we had a broad-based participation from the NGO, legal community, and a whole range of people who do not necessarily agree on views. A variety of viewpoints were dealt with. Thirdly, the recommendation we'll be tabling in the NEC will have a two-track process. The first, we've got about 7 commissions that were so we've not been able to put everything together. But what we want to achieve with that is a two-track process. The first process, what is going to be the ANC's contribution to the constitutional review process? Okay? So we'll put together a package of document of positions which will do that. So the Secretary General on Monday must be able next week to give you that. Okay? The second thing we'll be doing as part of this two-track is to say, what is going to be the ANC's program of action from Monday onwards? In other words, we're not going to say land distribution is going to be something that's going to take place at some time from now onwards. I just wanted to make sure that I can clarify those issues so that when we ask questions, we must have that in the back of our minds. Thank you.
No. Okay, thanks. This is how we're going to. Okay. Comrade Lamola says I must allow questions. I've got a smaller challenge What I was going to advise we do is that we do the question session outside. The officials are coming out. We combine it with the pledge. Will that cause a logistical problem? It will cause a logistical problem. You want us to finish? Okay. No, that's okay. I don't have a problem of doing that. It's just that the president of the ANC is outside. What I'm going to suggest we do is that we try do the pledge quickly and come back to the briefing area so that we can conclude with the questions. To also give you sufficient space not to ask questions in a rush. The land question is an important emotive issue to our people. What we'll have to start doing is we just make our way outside, we quickly cover the pledge, we come back here, then you guys have got enough sufficient time to ask about this. Yes, don't worry, what we're going to do is that as soon as we are done with the statement, you will get an abridged version. Is that the right English? Yeah. You'll get an abridged version of the thing. Let's quickly rush outside and do the Tumamina pledge and come.
And just coming out of the Chile House there, hearing from ANC spokesperson Bulemabo. Of course, we just heard some of the outcomes from that land summit, which took place over the weekend in the east of Johannesburg. Of course, the ANC or one of the representatives from the ANC just bringing to the fore of them calling on Parliament to pass the expropriation of land, but without compensation, of course, mentioning that it had been going to and fro and calling for that to become exact, as well as a call for a redistribution bill, which is also something new, and highlighting their importance and their focus on that going forward. We'll be bringing you more updates on this and more. Let's take a short break.
SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
SABCnews.com is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need. With a website that is easy to use on mobile, SABC News prides itself in being the primary source of public service content across multiple platforms. Watch live streams of all the big news events on the SABC News YouTube channel, which is one of the most viewed South African YouTube channels globally. And catch up on the best of SABC television and radio news. Follow breaking news on all of the SABC News social media platforms, interact with SABC News on Facebook, and stay connected on Twitter for the latest headlines and real-time updates by our reporters. SABC News, everywhere.
Shervin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Ntebo Mokobo, SABC Ufa go tswa mo Russia.
Neha Punya, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
32 nations, 44 matches live on SABC1 and 19 SABC radio stations. SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
Welcome back. You're watching SABC's Newsroom. Well, to officially launch the Tumamina campaign, President Cyril Ramaphosa is outside the headquarters at the Chile House in Johannesburg, CBD. He is set to be signing that pledge. We cross over live.
The national chair is here. So I'm going to hand over to the president. You must understand, it's not easy to take out officials on a scheduled officials meeting on a Monday. So, President, there was a white cloth here, so it had to be.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're now removing the white cloth. The imaginary white cloth is gone. So what we're doing here is really signing this pledge of the campaign that we have launched, the Tumamina campaign, and it talks to how ANC cadres, particularly the volunteers. Now, some of you may think that we misspelled it. It's not a misspelling, it's deliberate. It's like Avatar. It's a very special person.
Special powers.
With special powers, yes, who is going to be doing all this. So as ANC volunteers in service of our communities, we are dedicated to the creation of a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic and prosperous society. We're dedicated to the service of the people of South Africa, especially the poor people and the marginalized people in our country. We're also dedicated to the struggle for the liberation of the oppressed and exploited masses in our country. We also dedicate ourselves to fight against poverty, unemployment, inequality, and the betterment of the quality of the lives of our people, which is what the ANC exists for. And lastly, for the realization of the ideals that our forebears signed up for when they drafted and adopted the lodestar document of our revolution, the Freedom Charter. So all of us as volunteers of the ANC, as volunteers like avatars, we are signing to this and dedicating ourselves that this is what we are going to do. But in the end, we see this as going beyond just the general membership of the ANC. We see this as engulfing and encompassing many other people in the country, because all these things are not just germane to members and leaders of the ANC. They are the issues that all of us as leaders in the country, as people who are concerned about the future of the country, should be getting involved in. So with this, we sign this pledge and launch this to the rest of the people in our country. And I therefore sign, where do I sign? Anywhere, President. I therefore there you are. I have signed.
The National Chair.
National Chair.
It sounds like it looks like writing your name.
Yeah, it is.
You must also sign towards Mama Albertina.
Oh, Quizzy.
Destroying. OSG. Oh my.
SG, you go.
Sign next to Mama
DSG, you go. Oh, you going to the sidelines. Thank you.
Now, comrades, the pledge is officially opened. We are now going to roll this out in all the 9 provinces of the Republic and 53 regions. I'm going to allow the President to just give you a few bites on the conclusion of the Land Summit.
I will. You can go. Well,
You will have already heard a lot from the head of our ETC, Enoch Godongwana. The Land Summit was indeed a landmark summit for the African National Congress, because through the Land Summit we were giving full expression to the decision that we took at our 54th conference on a number of resolutions, but more especially on the question of the land. As you all know, our conference took a decision that we've got to address the issue of land reform and specifically focus on the speeding up of returning land to our people, and that we should embark on a program, amongst other things, which will lead to the expropriation of land without compensation, and use this as part of the processes that are going to ensure that land is returned to our people, and that it leads to increased agricultural production, food security, and also generates further economic growth in our country. Many wonderful ideas were put on the table of how we can do this, how we can legislatively move ahead with this process, whilst the parliamentary process is going ahead of looking at various aspects of the various instruments, be they constitutional or legislative, and how that can proceed. So we are now moving forward as the African National Congress to our NEC. The NEC is going to deliberate on the outcomes of the Land Summit, and whereafter we will then be able to outline more fully and clearly the proposals that have come from the workshop that we had. But all in all, it was a wonderful experience. We had experts, we had people from NGOs, we had people from the ground, people who are working with the land issue, who are farming, who are involved in farming organizations, who themselves are involved in daily farming the land. And we also had occasion to deal with urban land with regard to what should be done with urban land, particularly where there is hunger for land for people to build houses. So that too was entertained, and when the NEC this coming weekend has finalized its position, our clearer position will then be outlined. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the officials. We're going back to the media center.
Thank you so much, my brother.
Well, they just heard it, President Cyril Ramaphosa as well as ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa just giving his statement with regards to the two-day land summit which took place over the weekend, of course, citing that the recommendations will be now given to the NEC, and once the NEC has deliberated, then a clearer indication as to what will transpire from those outcomes will be announced going forward. We now cross back live to the Western Cape High Court, where Judge Sharad Desai is currently handing down judgment in the triple murder accused case against Henry van Breda. Cross live.
According to his statement to the police, Exhibit SS, the accused consumed other drinks as well the previous night. There is a discrepancy in the evidence of the accused, whether he denied having the other drinks or he could not remember having it. Precise amount of liquor consumed during the relevant period is not of much significance in this case. Safe to say that the accused probably did smell of alcohol. Experienced members of the South African Police Services testified that the crime scene was not consistent with a house robbery or burglary. An open bag was standing on the dining room table, and there was a laptop bag in the study. The accused agreed that nothing appears to be missing from the handbag. The cupboards in the study were open, but the contents of the cupboard were neat. During cross-examination, Sergeant Kleinans and Captain Steyn, it was implied by defense counsel that the Balaclava gang was involved in the commission of the crimes. As such a gang was operating in the Stellenbosch area. Captain Steyn was part of a task team established as a project by the Provincial Office to investigate a spate of house robberies by, in fact, the Balaclava gang. The task team investigated the house robberies in Stellenbosch and the Helberg districts and covered fairly vast areas. They were called out when they received a description of suspects wearing balaclavas, communicating in a foreign language, and involved a gang of 4 suspects with a small person in charge of the group. That was the usual occurrence. In this matter, the accused initially alleged that the intruders communicated in Afrikaans, but later said they could have communicated in English. He only assumed that they spoke Afrikaans because of the harsh tones. During the court proceeding, it was evident that the accused is quite familiar with the Afrikaans language. The Balaclava gang targeted isolated or freestanding houses, for example, farms in the areas, in the districts. The Balaclava gang only once targeted the house in the populated area, situate some distance from the other houses. The houses at 12 Gosker Street were almost in the middle. The house at 12 Gosker Street was almost in the middle of the estate, and there were houses in close proximity and all around 12 Gosker Street. It was a fairly built-up area. The accused conceded that it was strange that nothing valuable was taken on the way out by the intruders, but said he had interrupted them. The accused initially agreed that there were no signs of interruption, but tailored his answer after an objection by Advocate Botha, saying that the cupboard doors and drawers in the study and kitchen were open. The accused conceded that the study, cupboards and drawers were not in disarray. There was also no stuff packed up or stacked up somewhere in the house near an exit or an entrance to the house. The accused confirmed that nothing was missing from the house as far as he was aware. He did not notice anything that could be ascribed to the intruders being downstairs, and conceded that the house did not look burglarized. Sergeant Kleinans testified that the valuables were mainly on the ground floor of the house, and the attack took place on the first floor. Therefore, an intruder had ample time to remove the items on the ground floor. For an intruder to kill the 3 victims, injure a 4th victim seriously, and have a physical altercation with the accused must have taken some time. If the intention of the perpetrators was to steal, one would have expected them to remove the numerous valuables from the ground floor without disturbing the assumingly sleeping or oblivious occupants on the first floor. It is nonsensical that an intruder with the intention to steal would go upstairs and start attacking a member of the household in his bed with an axe, with the risk of alerting the other occupants of the house of his presence. During cross-examination, the accused conceded that had the initial attack on Rudy not taken place, the intruders could have cleaned out the house and gone away quickly. Cornelius van Breda had no knowledge of the personal items belonging to the victims, but testified that no report was made to him that anything was missing from the house. They went through the entire house, and according to Mr. van Breda's observation, nothing in the house was tampered with or missing. The accused confirmed that nothing was missing from the house as far as he was aware. Deal then with the visits to medical practitioners and the demeanor of the accused. The police took the accused from the crime scene to the district surgeon in Stellenbosch. The accused confirmed that he was taken for medical attention by the police. On 27 January 2015 at about 10:30, Dr. Albertser examined the accused as a victim and recorded the injuries sustained by the accused on a J88 form. She took a buccal swab from the accused for DNA analysis, and nail scrapings were swabbed from his hands as admitted in Exhibit K. Dr. Albertser could not find any clinical sign of alcohol or drugs. The emotional state of the accused during the examination was recorded as being very quiet. Dr. Albertser recorded the length of the accused as 1.84 meters, which is relatively tall. He weighed 93.5 kilograms at the time.
All right, just taking you out of that court case that's happening, or the judgment that's happening at the High Court in Cape Town. It's been quite a lengthy judgment. It's been going on since around 10 o'clock this morning. We'll take you back there in a short moment. For now, we're going to take you to a land summit, or the media briefing on the ANC's land summit, which happened over the weekend. That's taking place now at Latuli House.
Story of the ANC to the people of South Africa. So if we were in a hall, I would ask for them to give you guys a round of applause. But now that it's only yourself.